is Andre, and the claim that I will be refuting today is that the Russian Federation has played an active role in the development of the Ukrainian Revolution. Alright, the opposition's first claim was that the Russian Federation initiated the revolution by its annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Secondly, the opposition's second claim was that the Russian Federation has been illegally arming the pro-Russian separatists in order to continue the revolution. And the opposition's third claim was that the Russian servicemen and paramilitary forces have been spotted in Ukrainian territory. Alright, so refuting the first claim, that the opposition claims that the Russian Federation initiated the revolution by annexing the Crimean Peninsula. My response to that is that the pro-Russian separatists residing in the Crimean Peninsula decided to annex to Russia, thus not making it Russia's fault that a revolution broke out. The opposition is claiming that the Russian Federation is the sole reason that the Crimean Peninsula was annexed, and that the Russian Federation is also the main reason that there is a revolution occurring. The opposition did not state that during the Cold War, Russia lost control of the Crimean Peninsula and was annexed, and that the Russian Federation is also the main reason that The opposition did not state that during the Cold War, Russia lost control of the Crimean Peninsula, and of the people there before the annexation occurred were of Russian descent and thrived to rejoin with Russia. Crimea has had its own parliament since claiming its independence in 1991. And with the government, a treaty of accession was signed between Russia and Crimea that allowed Russia entrance into Crimea whenever. The Russians' goal was to aid Crimeans into reclaiming their homeland through nonviolent means. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, states that in our hearts we know Crimea has always been an inalienable part of Russia, while also stating that he desires a nonviolent transition for Crimeans into Russian society. Now the Ukrainians, however, their defense ministry stated that their goal is to protect and preserve the life of Ukrainian soldiers, hinting that the Ukrainians are ready for battle and bloodshed. Secondly, the opposition's second claim was that the Russian Federation has been illegally arming the pro-Russian separatists in order to continue the revolution. That is also not true because there is no proof toward that points at Russia arming the pro-Russian separatists. The opposition stated that Ukrainian troop transport was shot down by the pro-Russian separatists, which is most likely true since the pro-Russian separatists have shot down multiple Ukrainian planes before, but these events occurred independent of Russia. The opposition claims that the troop transport was shot down by a ground-to-air missile believed to be of Russian make. Thus, they have no proof that the missile launcher was made of Russia, and furthermore, the opposition states that these weapons can't be acquired at your local hardware store, and thus accusing Russia of providing weapons to the pro-Russian separatists. Now, these accusations are heinous and do not account for the fact that the U.S. sold over $44 billion in military-grade weapons to 173 nations in 2012. And it just so happens that one of those countries was Ukraine, based off of the military assistance reports posted by the U.S. Department of State. And if they did not receive the specific weapons from the U.S., they could have received them from any other foreign country that just happened to sell military weaponry. The third claim by the opposition was that the Russian servicemen and paramilitary forces have been spotted in Ukrainian territory. Now this is true, but it's not without cause. The opposition claims that the Russian military has been entering and exiting the country by crossing the border between pro-Russian separatist territory and the Russian territory. Russians state that this occurred during border controls and was an absolute accident. A Russian Defense Military Ministry source was quoted by the Russian news agency RIA Novosti as saying that the soldiers really did participate in a patrol of a section of the Russian-Ukrainian border, crossed it by accident on an unmarked section, and as far as we understand, showed no resistance to the armed forces of Ukraine when they were detained. And additionally, the Russian Defense Ministry goes on stating that 500 Ukrainian servicemen had crossed the border at various times, and he says, "We did not give much publicity to that. We just returned all those willing to return to Ukrainian territory at safe places." Thus, the Ukraine is taking these accidental border crosses out of proportion since they themselves have committed these incidents to the border crossing. Thus, the pro-Russian separatists are fighting the revolution without Russian military aid and independent of Russia. Therefore, the Russian Federation has not played any active role in the development of the Ukrainian revolution.
Structurally, everything is pretty easy to follow. On the first point, the argument is that it's really the separatists that are the source of these issues and not the Russians themselves. Although there's this long explanation about why Russia is entitled to go into Crimea and that Russia was entitled to Crimea in the beginning, and that Putin says inevitably Crimea is really a Russian area. Apparently it's just the Russian separatists that feel this way and not the Russians themselves. That, I think, kind of undermines the credibility of that particular issue. The argument that says that the Ukrainians are ready to defend themselves, that therefore they're belligerent, I guess that's a reversal of the cause-effect kind of argument. I think that you could probably need to find some additional information that suggested that the Ukrainians had been belligerent in some other way, and that might strengthen that argument. But to me, that just sounds like you've got a lot of spin going on that first point. On the second point, most of your argument is based on presses on the reasoning and the evidence that's been presented. The claim that there's no proof that the Russians are arming the separatists is challenged. You basically say, well, their only evidence says that it's it's likely to have been provided by the Russians, and you say that there's no proof on that. I thought you had a pretty reasonable piece of argument that says, look, there are arms from all over the world. The United States sells arms. They could have gotten this from anywhere. I think that's helpful as kind of a diversion to this particular issue. I don't know what data is available from the people who are making this particular claim. I think contrasting the evidence that the advocate cited to your position here is a little bit hard to do without having that immediate reaction. But I think that that's a good, a general response on that particular point. And on the third point about the border crossings, so you basically just say that it's been exaggerated by the Ukrainians. And I think if you could cite some information that says that there hasn't resulted in any shooting, there hasn't been any violence as a result of the border crossings. We do have the Russians making a statement on this particular point. Again, I think this would be one of those things where if we had some independent information that would be a little bit easier to accept. If the advocate was quoting only Ukrainian sources and you're quoting only Russian sources, then there's obviously going to be bias built into the argument someplace. This would be one of those places where some independent information would really help make your argument a little bit more sound. So far, by the way, there's a lot of reading going on in these arguments, and I understand that you've written things out in a particular way, and this is not just for your presentation, but other presentations as well, that people want to phrase things in a very careful way. But don't forget that this is a speech. This is not an essay, and so you need to sometimes explain yourself and worry less about the eloquence of your language and how cleverly you've figured out the way a reasoning process might fit into something, and worry a little bit more about the clarity of your argument. All right, thank you.